I would like to take this opportunity to thank, I think, Terabis. It's a long relationship that I have. They always provided this opportunity, and Hamza is very kind to give me the possibility to come forward and share and learn from you all. So thank you for that. I'll just take a brief introduction, and I think then we go into the agenda. But there are a few items that I thought, okay, before we get into the topic of the today, it's important to understand in terms of, that's okay, why this Islamic labor code and what are the elements in that one. So I'll try to capture some of those. Before starting, this is actually, I would like to say that this is our view, meaning the heading says that equality and non-discrimination insights into Islam's view. This view is our understanding of the teachings of Quran and Sunnah. And when I say ours, it is basically based on our work, which we recently published in 2020, the first edition, the Islamic Labor Code, which is co-authored by Iftikhar Ahmed and myself. And just as the sake of introduction, Iftikhar is a comparative labor law expert. He graduated from Cornell University in USA. He was the member of labor expert group convened by the Prime Minister of Pakistan. He's a Fulbright scholar. He founded Center for Labor Research in 2008, and then that's actually the institution that is working extensively on the labor rights topics in Pakistan and actually globally as well. I'm not sure if I can share some of the, if I can share my screen and show you, let's say, the CLR website. But if you have time, please go and visit clr.org.pk. It will give you access to quite a lot of information on that side. And I think, and also that they have published the Labor Rights Index in 2020, which I'll be mentioning a little later in my slide, in my conversation as well. So this is Iftikhar, the co-author of this one, comparative labor law expert. Myself, coming from the HR and talent management background, mostly I worked with all my career with the technology companies in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I think, yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning, this is the work based on our understanding of the teachings of Quran and Sunnah. And it is a topic which needed a lot of, it needs a dialogue and a conversation to be started. So we thought to put forward at least this work. And I'm sure we will, as we said it also in the book that we published, that this is a work in progress. And I'm sure others will also be picking up on the similar lines. And over time, more and more insights will be available into Islam's view on labor law and other topics as well. A couple of ground rules, meaning the idea was that, okay, I'll be taking topics by topic, so 3 to 5 minutes per topic, and then take a pause, take a question, because we received some questions already, and Adil Saab will be moderating it. I know Adil, he's a dear friend, but he's a renowned HR professional in Pakistan. He's actually somebody who I was speaking on this topic before even we published this book. So I highly value his insights, and thank you so much, Adil, for agreeing to moderate today. It means a lot. And so this is just an approach, meaning we'll take 3 to 5 minutes per topic, take a pause. If there's a question, address the question, and then move to the next topic. Before I jump into again, as I said, the agenda, one disclaimer, and I think it's very important, and I say with all humility that I'm not a scholar. Rather, you can say at most is a researcher in this topic, meaning we have the understanding of our own topics, like in the labor as well as the HR domain. And then we wanted to bring, as I said, this intellectual discourse forward, the discussion forward. So we present these thoughts, but we are not at all claiming that, okay, as a religious scholar or somebody who has the authority on this subject in terms of Islam's the teachings of Islam. So I think I'm cautious of my views, and I will be expressing in that spirit. And these are, as I said, these are our views, and I'm sure there are other views available, and I'm sure over time we will learn more and more. So please keep in mind that this is a conversation in this forum as a collegial conversation, not a sort of a scholar, who has authority on the subject. So I think we are far from it. With this thing said, I'll just go to give you a bit of introduction why we came up with this Islamic labor code and what is the reason behind it and why we needed such a thing. And I think it's very, very important to understand the background. And we all know that, let's say, majority of the people, when I was looking earlier, the list of let's say the companies that are participating in the people generally, they are like the HR people. And I think we all know as HR, and also generally when we are working, labor law is the only domain which covers almost all of your life, meaning from birth to death. So in the labor laws, where the maternity and paternity leaves are defined and other benefits are defined, also the funeral grants and things like that are defined, meaning labor laws are the only field which captures entire spectrum of your life. And it's very, very important in that spirit, that it should be well aligned and with, with the vision of the government. So this is one key element. And with that spirit, this work that we did actually is primarily for the governments of the countries and governments of the Muslim countries specifically. And I think it's very important to realize that one, because this is our audience in that way as well. And I think this was our trigger point also, and I'll capture it a little bit later why we started this work and when we started it. But yeah, if you look into the global perspective, like roughly there are 3.5 billion global workforce. Out of that 3.5 billion, roughly around 800 million are the workforce of Muslim countries. Primarily, these are the the people sitting in OIC Muslim countries and working from those countries. So almost you can say 700-800 million out of 3.5 billion. And just by the way, another stat, that 20% of the 700 million is the female workforce participation. This is where we are in terms, and I think we'll capture more details little later. Uh, and I think you see the numbers, like 57 are the OIC state members, or the Muslim countries in the world, and these are all the member of the OIC as well. So the 57 is that number of countries, and 26 of those countries declared Islam as the religion of the state. So it's very important to understand, meaning out of 57, there are 26 those have constitutionally announced Islam as the religion of the state, and 14 of those countries actually went further, and they said they proclaimed that Islam is a source of source of legislation. So 14 of the countries specifically proclaimed that Islam is the source of legislation. And I think, like in Pakistan, in the Article 227 of the Constitution, it is quite clearly mentioned that all existing laws must be brought into conformity with the injunctions of Islam, and any new law which is enacted, must also be in line with with those guidelines. So I think similar provisions are available in the constitution of these other 13 countries as well. And just to give you a bit of a background, what countries are these 13? And I think the list is also given in the book, and I'll show it to you in a minute. But mostly these are the Middle East countries, meaning the GCC and North Africa, like Egypt, Libya, Iraq, and Syria, and then Pakistan, Afghanistan, and then Iran and Maldives. And so these are some of the countries those are part of those 14 member lists. So I think it's very important to realize that yes, 26 declared Islam as the state religion, and 14 of those countries are also proclaiming that Islam is a source of legislation. But I think our situation is quite dismal, meaning many of the countries, and I'll show it to you a little later, that how we are performing on those on those elements. Another element, and by the way, maybe I'll try to again. I'm not sure if I'm able to share the screen on the link, so I have this slide in my backup. I'll just show you maybe here. This is a study that I was referring to you in the beginning, that Center for Labor Research, which Iftikhar, my co-author, founded, has completed in 2020 around the Labor Rights Index. It is an index which captures around 115 countries across the world on 46 different indicators of decent work. And if you see in this map, in this heat map, you can see it already that majority of the Muslim countries are in terms of providing the access to decent work at a very basic level, basic access to decent work, or a limited access to decent work. Meaning majority of the countries where you see the access to decent work is already or approaching. It is in Europe, and some of the countries are in Africa as well, and other places. But at least majority of the Muslim countries are at a very basic level. And I think this is the problem that I was indicating, that we as a Muslim Ummah face, because our constitutions are saying uh, our constitution is saying one thing, but then we are not able to do that. I think I understood from the team that I can show you the live heat map as well. You can visit the Labor Rights Index that I was mentioning, and to be honest, quite easily understand, okay, what is happening. Let's say Pakistan score is around 51, which is literally the basic access to decent work, and at that level. And if you look into some of the other countries like Saudi Arabia or rest of the countries. So I think this is, by the way, another resource. If you would like to use it as a HR labor law professional, you have the free access to it available under the labor rights index.org. So I come back to the presentation, meaning the other element is, uh, in terms of the why the Islamic labor code is the element of, meaning the angle to read this is for the organization's sake. So if you are the head of the HR, or if you are somebody who would like to design the processes of your organization, this can also help you a lot. But I think one key thing that we would like to highlight, and one need to realize that this whole work is based on the world of work at in 7th century, like 630 AD, at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I think we really need to realize that what type of professions were at that point in time. If you study, and I think we'll go a little later into the deep dives, but let's say the people from Makkah, mostly they were engaged in trade professions. People in Medina, mostly they were engaged in agriculture profession, and let's say the Medina market was more or less an import market, and so on and so forth. So I think it's very important that one who is studying for the sake of organization and to adopting any practices for organization, they must keep in mind the world of work of that point in time to understand and then infer the application for today. And then, yes, it is equally applicable for individuals, meaning we all should know as an individual that Islam view is quite clear on the equal treatment of worker. It does not discriminate based on sex, religion, race, or anything else. Meaning it is prohibited. It prohibits the sexual harassment. It provides the right to unionization, meaning it's a topic that I think in majority of the Muslim countries is not present. The collective bargaining and the unionization at the level that it can be. Meaning the laws are there, and it can do much better as compared to the rest of the world. Islam, abolishes the child and bonded labor. It provides the guidance on the occupational health and safety, meaning all the topics. So as an individual, we can also learn a lot from the guidance given in the work. And by the way, we also captured what are the work ethics and the workers' responsibility in the views of Quran and Sunnah teachings, and I think quite a lot of detail. I'm going to show it to you where you can have some of this detail available for you. As I think it is working, I'm just going to take another version and show it to you. Meaning you all have access to Islamic labor code. We have published the hard copies, but in a very limited number. But we made sure it is freely accessible for everybody online. So if you go to islamiclaborcode.org, you can access the complete work topic by topic with all the information. By the way, whatever I'll be presenting, I'll be mentioning high-level references or few references only today on the topics, but you can read the full text with all the sources and references on this link. Meaning, let's say if the wages, work ethics in Islam, you want to understand what type of contracts, what is the guidance on the profit sharing, social security, equality and non-discrimination, you can just have a look chapter by chapter, and you can go and read that chapter. This is exactly the format that we have it in the book, and so it is completely there for your access. So I highly urge you that if you get a time, please do visit the website. So I think now is the time for me to jump to the next agenda item. But just would like to say one more thing, that it's a non-comparative study. Meaning when we wrote the Islamic labor code, it's not a comparative study that we try to do. It is not that we are comparing Islamic labor provisions with other systems in the world and try to prove that Islam is a better system to follow. This is not at all. We are not Islamicizing any of the provisions and the modern workers' rights. We are not at all doing it. We are just simply explaining our view and putting it forward. And this is not an agenda to Islamicize any of the modern workers' rights provisions and things like that. We all know that. Let's say, and somebody asked me this question once, and the point is, okay, what is the need of such a code in presence of 200 ILO conventions? And I said that it is. By the way, this code is congruent to that, meaning it is not at all, when you follow the code, it is not telling you that you need to be in contrast to anything. Yeah, so it is not at all. And I think, yeah, so it is important that we follow. I was just trying to check if the team has managed to join in, but so far I think they're still struggling. So I think it's important to realize that it's a non-comparative study. It's not try to Islamicize anything like that. And also I think it's very, very important, before I jump into the content, that we are not claiming that Quran and Sunnah, the primary sources of Islamic lawmaking, have explained and resolved every workplace problem. At least we did not do that research yet. I'm sure there are topics that those need to be researched. I'm sure there is guidance available, but at least we don't know, and we are not claiming at all. And we are also not saying that Quran and Sunnah were written as Islam, as a labor codes. These are not the labor codes, or these are not the commercial codes, but these are the codes of life. And then, yes, when you look into that perspective, it provides you guidance. But yes, if somebody would say that exactly show me the provision, how it was written legally, yeah, it will be a very difficult, and this is not a claim. So I think it is very, very important to underline before we start. As I was showing the website, I think you have the access to that. I'll urge you, meaning while we are even discussing this topic, please feel free to visit the website and look into the references with all the the Arabic text, as well as the reference to the Hadith and Quran books. Uh, just very briefly, our journey, meaning we started this whole process in 2010 with Iftikhar, when he was in Cornell studying, and he published a paper in a renowned US labor law journal, where he given first time this perspective, the role of faith into labor codes. And then that was the basis of this work, by the way. And I think in the beginning of the book, we also capture quite a lot of that detail from that very basic, very, let's say, first article that we published in 2010. And then from 2014 onward, we both started working together. I was at that point in time based in Middle East, so we started discussing how we can bring such a thing forward, for the better consumption of everybody else. We have collected a lot of hadiths, thousands of hadiths actually, on the different topics. But yeah, then I think we got a little bit. It was not an easy task to really distill the information and bring it forward in a more digestible format for a general reader, and also then for the governments. Because if you say the sources and you quote thousands of those sources, I think it is very difficult to comprehend. Every single source is important, but it was becoming very challenging, and we kept struggling. We kept pushing slowly. But I think ultimately, in somewhere in 2018-19, we had an idea that we need to bring it forward as a labor code. But we were not getting enough energy, and I think the time was not right until the pandemic happened. And I think that was a trigger point for us. And we just simply put our effort, and with Allah's blessing, we managed to pull this work in 2020. So we published the first edition of the book of Islamic Labor Code in December 2020. And we distributed, to ulamas, to all scholars, to the judges in the courts, and the professors, and so on and so forth. And then it was well received work. We got very good positive feedback. And on the basis of that, we actually then already published the second edition of the book in 2021. We completed the work in June and published it in August 2021, which is the second edition of the book, which is, let's say, almost 25-30% of the additional references added. And the topics are same, the structure of the book is same, but we added more references into that. And that's available now. And at this stage, actually, we are in middle of a few translations into other languages, and we plan hopefully to publish the translation in Urdu, which was quite a lot demanded when we first published the work in 2022. So we plan to publish the Urdu translation, inshallah, in 2022. And as I said, the work is in progress. We will keep improving over time. We will keep looking for the guidance and feedback. So please feel free to share some guidance and feedback if you get a chance to read it, or if you have a question, please feel free to drop us a note. So yeah, in terms of agenda, as soon as Adil will join, I think I'll take a pause, and we take it further from there. But yeah, so in terms of agenda, we have three key topics, and all of these are very, very crucial. I think the first one is the insights from Quran and Sunnah on modern workplace topic like equity and non-discrimination. It's a workplace topic. I come from HR background. I think on the day-to-day basis, we face this challenge, and I think it's a topic across the world in terms of the current situations. And then I think it's really high time that the countries, the governments, the organizations, the individuals start taking this seriously. So I think it is very important to understand the guidance given in Quran and Sunnah on that element as well. And the second agenda item will be that if like the guidance on the prohibition of sexual harassment and related employee rights in the Islamic labor code, which we propose. And I think I'll share some of the highlights again. There's quite extensive detail available in the book, which I've shown to you already now. You can access it online, but I'll try to provide in this short time some of the highlights of that. And the third element is the role of the state in the labor market, and it's very, very important to understand that one. And as a presentation, to be honest, I'll take this sequence other way around. So I'll start with the role of state in the labor market, and then come to the sexual harassment, and then at the end we will capture the equity and non-discrimination. There are few key elements in the role of state, and I think we have captured it in quite detail in the proposed Islamic labor code as well. Please, as I mentioned, I think quite a few times already, feel free to read the details there. But I would like to highlight 4 of the key elements of the role of state. The first and the foremost is the inspection, and I think it's very, very important to realize that one. I'll quickly go through some of these topics, and I think maybe at the end, hopefully, the technology by then will work, and then we can take a pause. So the inspection is key. And by the way, Islam, in the Islamic law and in the state, there is an institution called Hisba. You can say a market inspector or ombudsman. This is available in majority of the markets anyway. And in the Islamic state, this is the institution which will do the work which we say Amr bil Maruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, meaning whatever is to enforce whatever is allowed or ordained by Islam, and prevent what is unlawful or improper, like munkar in Islam. So I think this is the role of the institution of inspection, or Hisba. And the role of the Hisba institution is two-sided, meaning it's to ensure on one side for employers that they do not exploit or overburden the workers, and or do not pay or pay less wages. So they need to ensure that the employers are treating employees fairly and equitably. But on the other hand, they also have a role that they make sure that employees do not demand let's say exorbitant wages or any other problems create for employers. So I think it's a role of Hisba. It's a very important institute. It's a role of state in terms of enforcing the Islamic labor provisions or the general labor provisions as well. And we, by the way, in Pakistan and other countries, this institution is already available. Key element is creating the employment opportunities, and I think this is another key role of Islamic state or a general state as well, as we all know that. And I think I would like to quote maybe one reference when we're looking at that, and there's quite a lot, by the way. We captured it, as I mentioned in the book. Hazrat Umar Farooq radiallahu anhu, when he was directing one of his deputies, he said to him that God has deputized us on his servants to protect them from hunger, to clothe them, and facilitate finding occupations for them. So I think this gives us an idea that, okay, what the role of state is quite clearly defined in Islam as well, and in the words of Hazrat Umar Farooq radiallahu anhu, facilitating finding the occupations for them is a key role of the state. I just wanted to check because I received the message Adil is back.
I am very much back. Can you hear me, Asghar Saab?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Shukr Alhamdulillah. Shukr Alhamdulillah. Please go ahead. I'll
yeah, it's okay. I think I'll maybe take a then pause as soon as I'm in middle of the role of state. Just captured the topic of inspection and creating employment opportunities, and yeah, I'll take a pause as soon as I finish the wages and social security. So in terms of wages, I think meaning in the Islamic labor code, you will find it out. We list down around 7 principles to determine the living and real wage. First of all, it's very, very important that the governments, and this is the focus globally now, moving from minimum wage to a living wage. And normally this should be the same thing, but this is how the world works, because many countries and the governments announce minimum wage, which is far from the reality. But Islam has a concept of living a real wage, and the principles given in the Quran and Sunnah around the wage, which we captured in quite detail in the book, are like there are 7 principles. So number 1, the first principle is the payment of the wage, or the wage is the right of the employee, meaning employer is not giving any favor by paying a wage, so it's a right of the employee. Second principle is the wage must be sufficient. And the third principle is the wage must be set and fixed in advance. Fourth principle is the payment of the wage must be timely. I'm sure you all of us heard that famous hadith that okay, pay to the laborer before his sweat will dry. And I think a lot of those references are in the book. But the payment of the wage must be timely, and the payment of the wage must be in full, meaning you can't withhold or let's say you pay partially. No, payment of the wage, whatever is agreed and set, it should be in full, and no wage theft is allowed. I think it's very important to understand, and Islam is, the guidance is very, very clear, and I'll quote maybe a couple of points on that. But and then the last principle is the equal pay for equal work, equal value for equal pay for equal value. So Islam does not discriminate on the basis of gender or anything, but it ensures that okay, equal pay for equal work. And I think it is in Surah Al Imran, in the ayat number 195, where Allah says that I never cause loss to the labor of a worker, be that male or a female. So I think it's quite clear guidance available in Quran on that one. And I think coming back to the topic of the sufficiency, Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to give double share in ghanima, the war booty or war spoils, to the persons with the families compared to the singles. And this is, by the way, one principle that he set for paying the sufficient wages. It's not the only principle, and I'll capture a couple of others as well. But it's important that when you are determining what should be the wage, it should be sufficient. So then keep in mind the circumstances. And I think another principle or another example is Hazrat Umar Farooq radiallahu anhu, when he used to set the wages, he used to do that in accordance with the prevalent conditions in the city. Wherever it's not like it was the same wage in let's say Medina versus in Syria or in other places. He used to set the wages according to the prevalent conditions of that city and the needs of the employees. So in the early Islamic teaching, these topics are clearly available, and these sources are also, as I said, clearly mentioned. And so I think that's very important on the sufficiency side. Just one more thing on the wage theft side, because it's a very, very important element. And Quran and Hadith are very clear on this topic, that it's completely not allowed that the employers stop or do not pay the right of the people. In one of the Hadiths, Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah would be the enemy of three people on the day of resurrection or the day of judgment, and one of them would be the one who hired somebody for some stipulated wage, took full advantage of his labor, and then did not give him his due. I think it can't be more clearer than that you can't withhold the wages of the people. And I know, being an HR profession, that many employers sometimes local and in many countries, I have noticed it. Okay, this is not an uncommon practice, meaning it is there in the market in this today in today's world as well. So I think we really need to realize that wage theft is not allowed, and I think this guidance is extensively available. Another one I just wanted to mention, meaning as I was mentioning on the sufficiency, the principle of Holy Prophet giving double share in ghanima to the married people, or the people those had more needs due to their family sizes. But Islam also allows the pay differentiation based on performance, which is a common topic in HR world, which we always discuss it. And I think the clear evidence is, okay, one of the Sahabi, Hazrat Salma bin al-Aqwa radiallahu anhu, he received 2 shares from war booty in the battle of Zukars, and it was due to his exceptional performance in that battle. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam declared him, announced him as the best footman. So I think because he performed well in that battle, the Holy Prophet given him at the end of the battle from the ghanima double of the share. So I think we can infer the principle that differentiation in payment on the basis of performance is also a principle derived from the Quran and Sunnah, from the Sunnah of the Prophet. And I think this brings me to the last topic of social security. And I think I'll just take maybe less than a minute and then take a pause then with Adil to take any questions. Social security is very, very important, and I think it is one of the main topic in ensuring the decent work and the rights in today's world as well. But we should, if you look back, meaning the guidance is quite clear in the Quran and Sunnah. It is the state responsibility to provide everyone with a basic state pension from the collection, done via the zakat, meaning the funds available via the collection of zakat, or if you are in short of funds, the governments can impose other taxes as well. So, but this was a principle in very early on in the Islamic State, available in the life of Holy Prophet, as well as in the life of the caliphs and the Muslim governments or Islamic governments afterwards as well. But and let's say if you look into the hadith, in a Sahih Muslim hadith, it says that the head of the state, Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said that the head of the state is the guardian for who has nobody to support. And if you look into the during the time of Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, there was quite a clear guidance actually on this topic available even for non-Muslims, that if an old person becomes incapable of working, or due to suffering from ill health, or became poor, or and reach such a stage, first of all, his jizya, the tax that non-Muslim have to pay to the Muslims, that will be remitted. And second thing, that his family will receive the allowance of maintenance from the state until the person lives in the Islamic State. So I think this was in the time of, as I said, in the time of Holy Prophet, in the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, and even in Hazrat Umar Farooq radiallahu anhu, we have the same references, and we quoted those in the book as well. So I think the social security, which we see it a common, let's say, offering in the European and some of these markets, and missing sometime in the Muslim countries, this was other way around. It used to be that not only for Muslims, but it was for anybody. And as I quoted the example, and if you refer to the book online, you will find many more, that this was allowed for Muslims and non-Muslims. So I think take a pause, Adil, here, and please, if you can hear me well. Yeah, any questions, comments?
I can hear you well. I can see you well. I don't know whether you can hear me fine or not.
I can now. Yeah,
you can.
I can now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Asghar Bhai. I think it's an honor. It's certainly an amazing topic, not just really close to my heart, but need of the hour as well. The way you have actually designed this presentation, because the book, I've gone through your book as well. It's certainly an amazing work, which was actually due, jisko kehte hain, farz-e kifaya. So you and Iftikhar Sahab has done some really amazing work. But the good thing is that you have already given the disclaimer that this is not a scholarly from that perspective, but this is a work in process. This work can be and will be improved and everything. But at least there is a beginning, at least there is a framework, something which is in writing, something which can be actually looked up to for these kind of situations. I know we have lost a lot of precious time, and a lot of our participants are actually been waiting for the answers to their questions. Although you have covered a lot of confusions, a lot of questions already in your presentation. But let me go straight to the people who have actually sent the really interesting questions. We don't have much time. What I would do is actually to mention some of the questions, or rather summarize some of the questions, and then I will request you to just shed light briefly on that. For example, Sayyid Naushad Rabbani, who was a deputy manager from Opal Laboratories, has actually raised a very relevant current issue of gender discrimination. To save time, I will just go through all the at least the selected questions, and then we can take one bit by one bit.
Or maybe if we do it like we can take a couple of minutes only, and this way, because we were still pending the topic of equity, non-discrimination, as well as sexual harassment. But I think I can take Naushad question in 1 minute, and then we come back to it again.
Asghar bhai, I think we have It's such an interesting topic. We have so many questions. So let me go through one
Okay,
by one.
then I'll take it.
I'm not going to read the
Yeah.
questions. I'm just
Okay.
mentioning why, because they have taken out the time, and
Yes.
just to
Let's
acknowledge
do
them.
that.
Mudassir Habib
Yeah.
is head of marketing. Mukhtar Sheikh, Javed Beg, senior manager, has actually YBG Renewable Energy. Syed Yunus Ali, manager HR of Shine Services. Muhammad Amir Hatif, manager Atak Refineries, and Sheikh Ubaidur Rahman, director K Electric, and uh, uh, the one which I really liked was Syed Muaz Shah, director. Um, he- all of these people have actually touched upon very important aspects of our corporate lives, as per your schedule, as per your actually the sequence. Sexual harassment, for example. Sexual harassment is in your book as well as in your presentation. You have done covered it really amazingly, and as far as I understand, the basic foundation for the sexual harassment is actually the concept of modesty. So my question to you would be, why? Because I'm actually summarizing all the comments and questions we have received. That on one side, it's modesty, which is the provisio to achieve the sexual or harassment-free environment. Even if we go, obviously not political, but if we look at our country's leader, Imran Khan has recently given a statement about the obscenity in the country and everything, although there was a criticism, but forget about that. But this is a very, really very current issue. This is a very especially after the media, especially after the social media and all gadgets and everything. So my question to you is, the equation on one side is to achieve the modesty, and the second, it's the consequence of being modest is actually the sexual and harassment free environment. So if societies or the corporations and the organizations are not being able to ensure the modesty at their workplace, how can they ensure this sexual free, harassment free environment?
Yeah, no, thank you, Adil. I think it's a very important question, and as we were discussing it, and I think the work captures it in detail also. And yeah, we did not get the time to do it now. But I would with this question actually I would take this opportunity to build it exactly as you said it. Okay, Islamic principle is based on modesty, and it is modesty comes, by the way, before it comes to the state, it comes to us as individual. Meaning, if you look into Quran and Sunnah, it is guiding individuals. That, okay, one of the hadiths is that the Holy Prophet said, one of the advice or the warnings of the previous prophets to their people were that if you have no modesty, you can do anything that whatever you like. So it is a Sahih Bukhari hadith. So it means it is individual responsibility. So first of all, we need to establish that and I think several verses are available on that why modest behavior is expected from men and women, everybody, in home, outside home, in gatherings and everything. I think it's very important that we need to do that. A second element, that meaning it's a responsibility of individual. But now you made the right point that organization or the government also has the responsibility to ensure that that if there is indecent behavior or a harassment specifically, then there are laws and laws available, and the implementation is efficient to address those issues, be it an organization. And I think we were planning to capture these four principles that clearly, and Islam provides the guidance around all these four principles, that if you have an harasser or a bully, you must name or shame them. Meaning, it's not that you should just let it go, or say we had this incident happen and let it happen, let it go. We address the problem. This was exactly the problem in Uber, this big fiasco that they had a couple of years back, that they were aware of the issues, they were addressing it, but they were not naming and shaming. So it did not address the bigger problem. Islam again provides the guidance that the punishment, to the offenders or sexual harassers, it must be known in the workplace, or it must be known in the country. The government should not only enact laws but also must enforce it. So I think in that spirit, the modesty, the decency is expected from individual, but from the organizations, it is expected that they put the right guidance, and then they must ensure that these guidance are lived by. These are, as I said, at
Thank
enterprise level, they must do that. And yeah, and by the way, fake allegation, it's very, very important that we must realize that it's not allowed. And if somebody does that, there must be a punishment. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very well covered, actually. On one side, it's individual responsibility. On the other side, it's the organization, whether that's country, macro level, or maybe at the organization level. Yes, there is a legislation requirement, and the organizations need to obviously look into that as well. Why? Because in my 27 years of experience, I've not come across a single organization having a policy on either modesty or for anything which is covering or at least supporting the sexual free harassment. I think it is about time that organization will realize, and they are going to. Yes, things are moving in that direction. Moving on to the very, very important.
Just want to something I just realized now. Meaning, I just want to say one liner only. And in Quran, Surah An-Nur, there's a perfect principle available exactly on the point that you said. It, okay, organizations are not doing it, and I'm just going to read the translation, so don't want to miss the word. It says about the punishment given to the people those are in the illegal sexual relationship, and Allah says that flog each of them with 100 stripes. Full stop. Let not pity withhold you in their case in a punishment prescribed by Allah if you believe in Allah and the last day. And the focus is, and let a party of believers witness their punishment. Meaning, you do not need to cover these things. You really need to bring it forward and address it.
Good. So, thank you very much. Islam is a complete code of life. There's no doubt about it. It's only a matter of us understanding it, realizing it, and implementing it. Moving on to the next, actually mother or father of all the diversity, all the actually this topic is the diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially. But when we look at the diversity inclusion definition by United Nations, whether that's the organizations we operating in West and everything, we see obviously there are statements actually placed and written like really amazing statements, articulated in a really very balanced manner, and they are covering aspects like race, color, religion, gender, political affiliation, nationality, disability, age, marital status, wealth, etc., etc., etc. But when we look at our corporate arena right now, the biggest emphasis has been given to the gender equality. It's my own experience, as well as I think it's quite open, or it's very obvious that out of all these areas, corporations are not paying a lot of attention to other aspects like disability, or maybe the religion, or maybe some other aspect, or maybe the political side as well. But they have picked and cherry-picked this gender thing. What is the downside of gender discrimination or equality or equity is that a lot of organizations have gone overboard with this gender equality. On one side, yes, this is absolutely amazing to strike a balance. But on the other side, organizations are actually openly advertising that females are preferred, only females can apply. Yes, they want to increase the ratio and everything. But that actually brings us to a very, very fundamental question that and by doing that, by just simply singling out, by discriminating on the basis of gender, they're actually violating a law of equal employment opportunity, which is prevalent, which is available in a lot of Western countries as well as some other countries as well. So how do you see this issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion concentrating more and more on gender only, or most of the time gender, and then end up violating certain regulations and laws of certain societies?
Yeah, no, thanks, Azizab. I think this is a pertinent question. But there are two steps we need to take it, in my view, in that step approach. before I answer specifically this sort of a positive discrimination, what we say about a vulnerable or a particular group of gender-based, I think we need to first understand the one key concept, and this is also a bit of confusion in Muslim countries. We still find that, and we say that okay, Islam does not prohibit the female employment or labor force participation. There's no such thing that is prohibited in Islam on this particular topic. I'm glad that we discussed about the decency and the laws and action of those the actions of individuals, actions of organizations, and the government already under the sexual harassment and that topic when we were mentioning briefly. But with that context in mind, meaning just simply to say one thing that okay, female participation is not prohibited in Islam. Now, coming towards, and I think maybe I'll actually just would like to highlight couple of things before I go and answer the positive discrimination which is happening in today's world. Uh, because this is equally with this question, I want to take that opportunity. Meaning, it is not let's say in Islam, it was not that women were not working. They were working. Meaning, I'm not going to quote the very known examples of Hazrat Khadijatul Kubra radiallahu anha or Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha. Meaning, where they led, they led the business. They led. They were scholars. Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha led the army. But I'll let's say quote. In Hazrat Umar Farooq radiallahu anhu's duration or time of government, he appointed he appointed the market inspectors in Medina, Shafa bint Abdullah, and in Makkah also at the same time, Samra bint Nahik. Both were ladies, both were women. And what was their job expected? To maintain or to keep the order in the market and provide the guidance on the transaction laws of Sharia. And this is, let's say, not meaning what I want to with this, because the question, I don't want people to confuse that Islam is somehow not in favor of women employment. No, it's not at all. And I think there are even other examples. Let's say Hazrat Rufaida radiallahu anha, she was a medical practitioner, and I think there is a hadith that one of the Sahabi came after one of the wars and his shoulder was injured, and Holy Prophet ﷺ said to the people that please put his tent in the yard of the Masjid al-Nabawi and ask Rufaida radiallahu anha to come and treat him. So I'm just imagining that she must have came in that tent in the yard of the masjid and treat. So it means the women's were working, the employment is allowed. Now coming back to the positive discrimination of a vulnerable group or a marginalized group, and you can say that I think there are different marginalized groups, and why companies or countries are focusing on that one. To be honest, we specifically did not study the positive discrimination element in our work so far, but I can give you a few principles, meaning what comes to my mind at least when we look into that one. And I think and I'm not at all saying that, by the way, one caveat is very important, that I'm not suggesting that whoever is doing this extra push by avoiding all other focus areas and focusing only on one areas, it's a right approach. No, it is not a right approach. You need to do it for broader, wherever this problem is, but whatever are the vulnerable groups. So it's not only based on gender, but it can be based on the age, it can be based on the religion, it can be based on the refugee status. So I think general, I'm going to say a few principles which give us the guidance how to manage positive discrimination on the basis of these principles. So I think if you look into the masarif zakat, like where you can spend zakat, one of the key principle in there is that okay, you can spend zakat on on the people those have recently accepted Islam, like talif al-qulub or mu'allafat al-qulub, for that sake. Exactly. So that is a key concept. It means you can do something for a vulnerable group. But as I said, this vulnerability will not be only on gender, but it can be on age, religion, refugee status, anything else as well. Another I think thing that we have noticed when we were studying, that Holy Prophet was the guidance was his guidance, sallallahu alaihi wasallam guidance was quite clear. Let's say in the times of war, he said, don't hurt women, children, and old. So meaning he did not say only don't hurt women, but he said, meaning this broader spectrum. Actually, in another hadith, we also noticed that he said, do not fight with the servants. Those are not fighting with you, meaning non-combatant workers of of your enemies. So do not fight with them, do not kill them. So it means he created the list of vulnerable groups in a war situation: women, children, old, non-fighting workers of the your enemy. So it means you can create such positive discrimination, or let's say these type of marginalized groups, and you can focus on them. It is part of Islamic guidance, but overdoing of anything, I think it will not result maybe in the best of.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think very well and described, and you actually gone into a really important detail as well. How when we look at the your code, labor code, I think it's very well summarized as well, and it on one side it has given the Islamic perspective, but on the other side you have also included the Orientalist or the Western point of views as well. For example, in this particular gender equality or maybe the discrimination, you have very aptly mentioned very famous historian on Islamic historic economic progression and everything is Charles Miller. And the Mitchell you have also mentioned, but when we look at this entire scenario, the West has actually criticized Islamic world for not including gender or the female representation in the economy. Um, uh, yes, it could be debated whether that's Orientalist view is right or the Islamic historic perspective is right. But that brings me to the next question. Why? Because we do not have a lot of time. We need to
Yeah.
conclude this in the
Yeah.
next 7-10 minutes.
Yeah.
On the basis of two things, I think these are really important. One is the religion. Second thing is the race. So let me combine this, and you can go ahead and we can conclude it. Um, which is the race as well as the religion. But if we look around all across the world, uh, we have seen America transforming or showing maybe it's maybe true colors or maybe some other uh, aspects of that society, especially after um, Trump. When we just look around and see across the border, India. And obviously all over the world, if we look at the macro level, we see nothing but discrimination on the basis of religion and which is obviously the race as well. Obviously, corporations are operating in this big environment, and they get impacted as well. Although I've worked with the top global companies, multinationals, and everything. And I can safely say that they have really amazing policies. I think in some cases, even better than the local companies as well. On one side, yes, articulating it, putting it in that. But in practice, I think a lot of companies, even the multinationals, are lagging. Maybe that is because of the overall environment, global environment, or the political or maybe the society impact. But what do you think that after this labor code into the Islamic perspective, a lot of companies are not even following the usual or the conventional labor code. If we just look around the Middle East, which is the Islamic dominant region, when we look around and see the violations of labor regulations and laws and everything, I think they come at the top when we look at all these researches and reports and everything. On that side, yes, the Muslims are not even, or at least the Muslim majority countries are not even following it. So, what to say about all the Western countries? But especially after bringing this Islamic perspective, I think a lot of companies are going to get the right perspective of the religion. And why? Because initially, maybe they might have that impression that this is a Western code and this and that and everything. We don't need to follow this. But I don't think there is any more excuses for maybe the Middle East or at least the Muslim organizations, at least the organizations operating in Muslim countries who want to follow this Quran and Sunnah way. They would not have any other excuse right now. So, how do you see this issue solving or maybe deteriorating in coming future?
No, I think, to be honest, I'm generally optimistic, but it's only I would say what you said it rightly. But before I even answer one very thing in the beginning, what you were mentioning, and it's very important. meaning all companies are publishing nowadays their equity statements and D&I statements. Meaning, who gave the first D&I or equity statement in the world, in the history of the world? It was the Prophet. With all these Greek scholars, Pluto and everybody was there. Nobody had said such a thing before he said in his final sermon. Meaning, now we are celebrating in or in USA and other places the Black Empowerment Month, or the African Asian Month, and so on and so forth. We are doing it today. He said it 1400 years ago, and he not only said it, he practically shown it when he was dealing the people, and then he did not differentiate it. Meaning, one of his employee, not a servant, was a Jew boy, and when he was ill, he visited him, and many other examples. Meaning, I'm going to come to the religion, or let's say, this religion point in a minute. But yes, so that is very important that we need to realize. Second, I think you and I both know that, let's say, the best practices or the researches come on any topic when the research is happening in one of the leading institutions, be it and mostly these are the universities, and then these are the knowledge hubs where the ideas are generated. And how the ideas are generated, there is a research happening. Then from there, the companies, because majority of the current global companies are present in US and Europe, so this is where they come from. But I think the light can come from anywhere. Meaning, if Islam has the light, if Islamic teachings can provide the guidance, why not to bring it forward? Our problem, exactly as you said it, we are not even the good implementer ourselves. So how we can blame others? I think first we need to fix the problems in our own house. And luckily, we are not, let's say, we have the guidance, but we are closing our eyes, and we are sitting for ILO to tell us, or we are sitting for some researchers sitting in USA or in Germany or in Europe, sitting researching on topics to tell us, like, what type of a policy you should form and what not. But the religion is, to be honest, and our let's say expectation is that if we can achieve some guidance, meaning out of this work for the governments, and they can improve, this will be a great success. At least individually, when you're reading it, you do not need to feel sad about it. Actually, you should rather feel proud that my religion provide the guidance. And by the way, majority of the religions do provide such guidance. The problem is, we believe that the faith gives you another push to follow. And I think if it is properly leveraged, this work can bring a lot of value. On the religion, I just want to quote one very classical, which we were speaking other day, and I think it's a worth mentioning example, and it's a clear show of sign that in Islam and in the views of the leader of Islam, which was the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the importance was, when you are hiring somebody, the skills of that person, meaning the most important journey of his life, when he is moving from Makkah to Medina for Hijrah, his life was at risk. Who he hired to be his expert guide? Someone who was from the pagans of Quraysh, the people those were collectively against him, those were trying to hurt him. He hired one of them to take his and Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu's camels and bring after 3 days to Ghar Sawr. And this is a Sahih Bukhari hadith, meaning, and by the way, it tells you also about the work ethics of the people at that point in time. Imagine the guy who was a non-believer, but his work ethics were that he did not leak the information. He brought and because he was competent, as we know that the 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 required skills, hard skills, and the soft skills, al-Qawi as in Surah Taha. So given the guidelines for anybody to be hired, meaning religion is not is the base to be discriminated. You need to hire people on the base of their skill, and this is what Holy Prophet shown in the one of the most important journeys of his life, that he relied on
Absolutely.
the skill of somebody, not the religion of that person.
Oscar Bhai, I think this is such an important topic, and I don't think a webinar or an hour or too long session can do justice, or even scratch the surface, frankly speaking. But we will, because we have received a lot of interest into this, and a lot of questions are coming in, a lot of shown interest on this particular topic. So I actually thank you for taking out time. I don't know, yeah, the time difference as well. And I actually apologize on behalf of the Terabase that there was some glitch, the technical glitch that is, I think, has become part and parcel of Pakistani connectivity now. But you improvised, Asghar Saab, really well, and you have covered this such an important topic, or the aspects of this particular topic, in a very wholesome manner. And we really thank you for writing this code, putting it all together, as you said. Um, this is a work in process, and all the audience who are actually logged in right now, as well as who will be listening to this broadcast maybe later in the day or some other time. So I think we should request them to actually contribute in this, to take this forward, to read this first of all, to understand this, and ideally initially implement this code individually, as self, and then in the organization. Thank you, Askar Saab. Very nice
Thank you
of
so
you.
much, Adil. Thank you so much, Hamza, for your time, and thank you to everybody who attended it. And I think Adil said it, but yeah, sorry for that glitch. Thank you.